And hi guys, and welcome to Get Reviews and part 2 of this video about the absurd powers of the Emperor. With me once again is my little baby Goldie, who just, yeah, he waits for me. But I cannot still play with him because I have to stream, and I also recorded before that, and he is amazing. Oh boy. Okay, so so guys, before we begin, this video is sponsored by me and my OnlyFans, where I do my meaningful sex educational content, fitness, health, nutrition, ASMR, and I take also some requests, but for that you have to, well, go there to see what that is like. Okay, so damn it, I totally forgot my train of thought for a bit. Yeah, I was supposed to be here yesterday, but unfortunately, I wasn't. Fortunately, I got a new GPU, so I finally got, well, lucky. I found some connection, and basically I got the 3060, sorry, the 3060 Ti, and now I have a very old hardware with a very new card that I'm only using maybe 70% of. But that is what I can do for now. So my old 980 Ti, well, it's probably going to be sold. I mean, that's the idea, to someone that actually can use it for rendering, one of my friends, because it does work for 3D and rendering and all of that. It just doesn't work for some games, as you know. Total War Warhammer did not run because of it, and now it runs. Now it runs. So basically everything that did not run, now it runs. So that's amazing. I cannot tell you how much relief I feel by this, because it's really awesome. I was in this torturous state for months and months, and finally I'm not. So, yay! But yeah, that was the reason I had to go at the evening, get the card, go back home, test it. And yeah, a lot of testing basically. That's what I did the whole night. But now we have to get back to the video and analyze the rest of it and see what we have left to see of the Emperor's powers. And as last time, guys, please go to check down below the link to the original video of webcam parrot and just watch it to the fullest extent, the way that it was meant to be seen. I mean, he's amazing. He got so many sources for this. So yeah, I have no words for that. Okay, let's greet everybody in the chat. Oh, my Primarchs are all here. Hi to you. And DB, hi to you too. Dark, hi to you. Yes. Smooth. Thank you, thank you. Well, it's supposed to be, at least with less issues, if those are possible, with a new card, but, well, hopefully. I mean, it's a PC. You can expect everything from a PC. Okay, without further ado, let me check how the video should sound, everything. And yeah, beginning from the exact point that we left off.
Moving on to the next school, telekinetics, which mostly offers, typically telekinetic powers like being able to crush people to death or moving objects with your mind. But notably in this discipline is Psychic Blade, which produces a blade of psychic force a single molecule thick that can easily cut through even the toughest armors. Telepathy is a school governing the contact and control of other minds that
Okay, I just want to say, well, I just think that a lot of the armor now it's totally useless when you're up against the Emperor, and even some psychers that are, well, powerful. Not as powerful, of course, because there's no such thing as a powerful psyker as the Emperor, but the point is, if some other psyker can do such things, like, that's gonna be very hard to defeat, to say the least.
covered somewhat already, but worth mentioning is See Me Not, a type of invisibility that works by instead erasing your presence from the mind of the enemy, preventing them from perceiving you at all in any way.
Perfection. Great. That that reminds me of that Melissa McCarthy comedy movie. Yeah, it was very funny, actually. I mean, it's horrible for some people, but for me it was light, very stupid at points. I mean, it was really horrible at points, but at the same time, uh, funny to a point. So yeah, do not watch it though. It's kind of a waste of time, but I was entertained, and in the middle of the movie I was totally horrified and cringed out of my mind, but other than that, it's great. Okay, don't listen to me. Continuing.
Mind Scan gives us an example of the truly full range of mind delving capabilities available to a psyker, allowing them to explore all regions of the mind, from surface thoughts and short-term memory to the subconscious and the bare soul itself. A Dark Angel's version of this ability is described as burrowing your consciousness into the screaming victim's brain, ripping free their secrets in a spray of gore, which is incredibly metal. Whilst, just as devastatingly, Mind Wipe scourges the mind of its target, dragging out every memory that makes them who they are, and reducing them to hollow shells of what they once were.
Jesus.
Premorphic Resonance, which could fit into any number of schools, is similar to many of the fate-related abilities mentioned earlier, allowing the user to peer into the timeless eddies of the warp, seeing future echoes of whatever movements the enemy will make before giving this knowledge to his allies, basically allowing an entire group of people to see into the future. Neural Void assails the target with a void of blackness upon the victim's minds, breaking down all mental cohesion, with orders becoming garbled and impetus blunted.
Basically, all the powers so far sound like something that you will live through in hell. So, a psyker is like walking hell? Hell upon others. Is there something good that the psychers can do that's, positive? That's a good question.
Veil of Time gives the psyker the power to control time directly, altering the temporal flow to sway the tide of battle.
You know what I'm also noticing when I say hell? I also notice that there's just no regulation of anyone here. So basically, if the emperor or whoever it is very overpowered, there's no regulation from above, like godly regulation from, let's say, another side, not chaos, to somehow make a balance in the universe. Basically, if the humans decide to sacrifice themselves, I mean, shamans in this way, what I mean, and make the emperor, so to speak, they can just do that, and he's gonna be like the most powerful being ever, and nobody's regulating anything. There's no balance. There's just, well, this guy can just evaporate you. There's just no consequence to him. He can just do whatever he wants, and everyone else that are powerful, they can just wipe another. It doesn't matter at all, So this is kind of a very weird thing. It's like karma is missing from the Warhammer universe, cause and effect. Well, any kind of a karmic law. I talked a lot about the differences, similarities between esoteric science and what is integrated from that in Warhammer 40k. So once again, I'm discovering some new things, making some new conclusions as I go along the different details. So that's interesting to me to think about. But last time when we discussed this, I reached the conclusion that, the world of 40k is like an opposite of how the world functions in the world of esoteric science. So that is also very interesting. It's basically the upside down. If you watched the Netflix show Stranger Things, there's a upside down, which is like a dimension that is total opposite of the real one. That is more metaphorical than literal, but 40k looks like the upside down of esoteric science. It's really crazy. It's very, it's basically like a devil wrote it, like the devil wrote 40k in a way, because don't take that into the religious sense of things. Literally take that in an esoteric sense, because when something is upside down, well, to let's say the positive, the creative, let's say it that way, then it is, well, by definition, an evil thing that is created to, change your perception in some kind of a way. So you can see how the world could be when it's full of dread and dark and all of that, and you kind of start to think that that is how our world is actually, and that's how our the world could get to, because 40k, it is taking from real history and human progression, and then it does take and focuses on the bad qualities of human beings, like a lot more on the bad qualities than the good. Of course, there's some redeeming characters. I mean, redeeming, I just mean not that bad characters. You know, when you go out through the novels, you see the humanity in them, all of that. But the overall presence in the universe is just evil, all around. So just, don't take that as anything. I'm just sharing your sorry, I'm just sharing my own philosophical observations over Warhammer thus far, because when it comes to any type of literature, like I said before, it's just what I used to do when I was growing up. That's just a part of my education, to like decipher what a particular author said. I mean, why they said what they said, and what is behind everything, what is in between the lines, all of that. And also, for more context, for those of you that haven't watched everything previously that I already analyzed about 40k, and yeah, I mean Warhammer in general, is that you cannot look at a story without knowing what is behind the story, without knowing what are the sources that inspired the writers to write that story, because every writer has to have a ton of knowledge in a particular field so they can write their own story. Otherwise, some of their characters or made up things might not sound very believable. So they need that believability aspect. And the more you know outside of Warhammer about the sources that they could have drawn from, and they definitely did, because some things are just very, very interesting. Let's just say that. So the more you do know that and you consider the background, the more you can analyze how things are and why they are this way. And then you're just gonna reach some conclusions, because when you know one thing, you can compare it to another thing and obviously make the difference. Because in this case, Warhammer is the dark, super dark, gritty, disgusting in many ways. It is intriguing. That doesn't mean it's not intriguing. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm just objectively, making an assessment of how things could be in this case, when you take the sources in consideration, when you take what is the end result, meaning Warhammer. So when you take 40k, 30k, whatever, you see that it's total opposite of what it's supposed to be according to esoteric science, which is, I mean, I cannot think that that's a coincidence, because it looks deliberately, sorry, that's very hard work, a hard word for my English tongue. Um, it seems to be very, very in a deliberate way done this way, because the way it was done is very methodical, and some of the things are excluded, some of the things are twisted, everything is twisted. But it is pretty mind blowing, actually. I never thought that someone could take, anything from esoteric science to that extent, turn it like upside down, literally, and create a whole history of humanity with that. That's kind of a profound discovery, at least for me. So yeah, I'm pretty mind blown by that. I've never seen anything like this before. I mean, we obviously seen movies and a lot of things that do touch upon some aspects, let's say, of anything that you can consider as esoteric, but it's like minuscule, it's like so little. It's it's twisted a lot of times totally wrong, or sometimes it's not wrong, but it's presented in such a way that if you don't know, once again, anything, you will think wrong about what is actually being said. You will not get what is actually presented to you. So I'm fascinated. I'm just fascinated with 40k. That's it. Um, like, I just don't want you to get me like I'm some kind of a pitchfork I don't know how to say it. I hope that you don't think that. I'm literally just comparing in terms of art what this could be. So yeah, but as I said, this is going to be a very long topic about the differences and the similarities between esoteric science and 40k. So it deserves its own video because I'm literally going to compare, let's say, how demons are described here, how demons are described in the esoteric science, how the warp is described, how spiritual world is described in esoteric science, how psychic power work and how are psychers here. Obviously, psychers here have nothing to do with how psychic powers are, explained in the esoteric science, how they are created, all those things. So yeah, a lot of things to compare, and then you can really see that it's upside down. And okay, I'm just very, very, very fascinated. It's amazing. Okay, getting to your comments real quick. I totally deviated, but when I hear something like that, it's just piling up on everything else that I already know, and I keep getting those confirmations about different aspects of 40k that they're the upside down. So I'm just like, what? Another thing that's like that? Wow. That's more than a few coincidences here. That's so many to this point. I hope that you can get that. Yeah, sure, Tom. Sure, sure. Tell that to your rotting guts when he gets to you. And to everything else that's gonna be rotting. Martyr do amazing things. Not just the game, but the powers in this Inquisitor are rap based and powerful, and they are all based from the tabletop. Okay, but what are these powers? Is there anything objective? Is there anything positive there? Hi, Irko. What? No, thank you. Well, that's new. Thanks, Matty. 16 days till Halloween. Okay, Bobby, you're very obsessed with that holiday, obviously. But okay, you can dress as whatever you want. I'm not sure if I'm gonna do anything on Halloween. I'm just gonna get into my Supergirl costume as always because I don't have anything else. Okay, continuing with that.
Tenebrous Curse turns the shadows of the opponent into living creatures that pull them to the ground, tearing them apart and leaving them vulnerable.
Okay, that's worse than what you can see in Mortal Kombat.
Now, important to mention is that all of these abilities, with sufficient skill, can be used down to an incredibly precise and microscopic level, making it almost impossible to even know that you are under the effects of them in some cases. Like with this psyker here, who was able to bond to a number of different creatures through marks that were this small. Additionally, both Null Zone and Deny the Witch show that all of the abilities I just talked about, from soul manipulation to biological transformation to erasure to mind reading to teleportation, can be countered by another sufficiently powerful psyker, with Null Zone stripping away all defenses, technological and mystical, and Deny the Witch straight up just saying no to any of these powers and preventing them outright, provided, once again, that you are strong enough to stop them. The Emperor is basically the strongest psyker ever and regularly competes with high universal gods on this account, making his full arsenal incredibly potent and simultaneously stripping his opponent of any similar abilities to his own. Additionally, Calexis Assassins, or the Sisters of Silence, which are powerful psycho-nullifying elite agents, have trouble even nullifying Alpha Plus rated psykers like Magnus, that the Emperor is far, far beyond. So he is used to overpowering and dealing with beings that are just considered to not even have a mind or presence in the warp at all, effectively bypassing what would otherwise be considered immunity to his powers. Malkador the Sigilate notes that there are certain permanent benefits that come physically from just living as a psyker for a time. He says that every molecule of his being was changed forever by it, making him near ageless and unkillable by conventional means, even without his powers anymore. That he had long ago fell beyond the scope of humanity.
Okay, why is then he old? Why is he presented as old? I mean, someone just explain to me why Malkador is always like this very fragile old man. So if that's so awesome, why he's not looking like a hunk of a young man or something? Making the enemy of mankind explode in a shower of flesh and blood and guts. I don't think I can say all of that on YouTube, Maddie. That just careful with the colorful expressions there because I'm reading them live. Those bars can turn on the Inquisitor and kill them. No, that's not positive. You know what I mean? That's not positive. That's downright evil and brutal. Might be cool if you look at it from a very. I don't wanna insult someone. From a very, you know, not sympathetic, kind of immature way when you enjoy something like a horror movie, but it's definitely that does not anything to do with consider it good by the normal meaning of the word. So yeah, that's it.
The Emperor is so extremely beyond Malkador that even as a corpse strapped to the Golden Throne, he has been able to power the Astronomicon and prevent a warp rift for 10,000 years that turned Malkador to dust in only hours or days,
Yep.
even whilst doing other things around the galaxy, and likely has a form of inherent immortality far beyond Malkador, even without any of his psyker powers. Obviously, more or less every ability that the Emperor possesses is in some way psyker based, but not all of them are documented and accessible to regular psykers in this way, so I'll go over more specific instances of the Emperor's psychic talents later, although I talked about them a little bit already. For now, I want to talk about the Emperor's actual ability to destroy things. Now, Malkador, who we just spoke of, was capable of teleporting the entire moon of Titan away into the warp to protect the Grey Knights, as well as shielding them entirely from detection. Titan is nearly twice the mass of Earth's moon,
Wow.
and if we take the prior time frame seriously, the Emperor is at least millions of times more powerful than Malkador, putting him into the large planetary levels of power, or about 4.13 times 10 to the 35th power joules. However, it's noted that the warp rift that Malkador died trying to keep open actually makes powering the Astronomicon look trivial. And the Astronomicon itself is a galaxy-wide beacon spanning across most of the Imperium and countless solar systems, putting it closer to multi-solar system levels of power. Accounting for this same difference between Malkador and the Emperor gives us the low end of 10 to the 60th power joules of energy. Of course, as we already saw in his fight with Horus, that the Emperor, even extremely weakened and near death, is capable of slinging out god-denying psychic bolts that were more destructive than an exploding sun. So this level of strength isn't surprising.
Wow. Okay. Quick thought. The Emperor is more powerful than the Greek gods, it seems. At least how they're portrayed in movies and series. Because in movies and series, they're absolutely so weak that it's pathetic. They're just beings with some powers. That's it. And in particular circumstances, or some other god just comes down and just kills them or something. Yeah, that's very powerful. Or just Xena. Xena can kill them all, and she did kill them all. With, minus Ares and Aphrodite. So, yeah, I mean, they cannot do any of these things at all. They're counting on mortals to do their things, to do their bidding, and counting on their worship to be powerful. I mean, depending on what variant you're watching, what movie are you watching, but for the most part, Greek gods are ridiculously weak. So, by that measure, if you think about it, if the Emperor is not a god in the Warhammer universe, or at least he wasn't, when he was alive, and he is already hundreds of thousands of times probably stronger than any Greek god. Then how much of not a god he is? I mean, he is like a lot of times of a god. It's just funny to think about. Okay. Wow. The dark web is at it again. Hmm. Okay. Okay, Moonlight, you're here. You managed. I don't care. So yeah, Moonlight, you have to go back a little bit when you can at the beginning of the stream, but continuing on now.
On top of this, a pretty unremarkable greater demon of Tzeentch, far weaker than the Emperor, was able to move an entire cluster of stars around without any problems. And another demon, Mathail the Undivided, created a fortress billions of miles wide and millions of miles tall, as well as the Necrosphere, a dome of bones enclosing an entire solar system, only to eventually be killed by the Emperor's son, Sanguinius, who is much weaker than his father. Less impressively, during the battle on Goro with the orcs I mentioned earlier, a huge power generator that was loaded with orc Wa energy was on the verge of exploding, and had to be thrown fully into the warp temporarily by the Emperor, only to, upon its return, destroy the planet as surely as if it has fallen into the grip of a black hole. This is relevant because the energy that went into the generator literally comes from the thoughts, beliefs, and psychic energy of the orcs that the Emperor just completely overpowered and annihilated utterly with his own psychic powers.
Okay, so first of all, it begs the question why all the Primarchs are so much weaker than the Emperor, like so much weaker than the Emperor. He wanted his sons to do his thing, I mean, to do his job when they started the crusade, so he, came back home to develop the webway, all of that. But he did make them consciously a lot weaker than him, maybe because he was afraid that they could overthrow him or just to take a precaution for that. But he definitely held back on a lot of his powers, and all of the Primarchs have flaws as well. So not only that they are not perfect as the Emperor, I mean physically, but they also have a lot of flaws. And not to mention immaturity in behavior, emotional responses, a lack of wisdom. Some have wisdom, don't get me wrong, but a lot of them are just like angry babies for the most part. They just express it through different things. I mean, to their own specialities. Let's say, for instance, Rogodorn is the builder and all of that. Well, he expresses that through his kind of a leadership and demeanor sometimes. Horus, the biggest ego ever, and yeah, I mean, there's some kind of an immaturity in each and every one of them that's kind of like their downfall. Either is too much pride or there's something there, something there. There's also the physical things, the rage that everybody has. I mean, from the Sanguinius himself and his legion, that rage and other things from the other. Not as I mean, the rage is like the thing that I mean the flaw that is most prominent, it seems, and it's like most famous as well. The point is that he not only made them a lot weaker, but he also made them defective. So that's interesting. That is interesting. Okay, let me read quick what you guys are saying. Don't care says, I think most gods were not imagined as this all powerful beings. Remember, there were in Greek mythology titans that were stronger, and then the what is that? Primordials. Primordials. Well, what to tell ya? Greek mythology is not the only source knowledge of these gods, and yeah, I cannot get into that, but it's not the only knowledge. They are much more powerful than they're betrayed, in the movies. So there's that, but that doesn't mean that their jurisdiction is allowing them, like, is reaching to the highest extent that they can just do this and destroy everyone if they want, or do this and fix everything. That's not how humanity should work and be taught, so to speak. So they have certain things that they can do, and certain things that they also can do, but they won't do because there's also a lot of rules that are set to have particular ways of development. So it's really not as simple as in the movies, is it? The movies are very, very surfacey, very, very surfacey, and they don't really care about anything else because then people will have to think about it. Then, yeah, who the heck wants that? So, reading the rest of your comment. Moonlight. It's simple since he made the Primarchs similar to what you could say pillars that help hold the Imperium together, which due to events, Gilliman is the only pillar holding the Imperium together. Yeah, we all know that Gilliman is the only pillar. That doesn't explain, however, that they're so weak. I mean, they can still be the pillars, but just stronger pillars for the Imperium, but they are not. So there's that. I think the Emperor just knew that some would betray him to chaos, so making the Primarchs much weaker than himself makes sense. Yeah, but he cannot. He didn't avoid it anything. I mean, and he still got embedded in the Golden Throne by what Horus became. So he was not strong enough to defeat him, but he got one with the demon. So that was enough, and especially the fact that the Emperor acted too naively in this situation and decided to be emotional in the moment that he should be the most decisive of all times. He decided to be emotional there. We already talked about this last time. So yeah, and by the way, when we, since we touched upon this, let me see if I can find something, and then I'm gonna continue reading your comments. I mean, that was a comment under part 1. So the last video, part 1, that was a comment. So let me try to search for it because I cannot say it in the same way I replied to the person that wrote there. Okay, so Pepper says the powers are insane. We were talking about the Emperor's powers and why he's not using them when it really counts, in that final battle with Horus. Because judging by all this that we see in this video, he should be able to wipe Horus right away without any second thought. He should be able, I'm saying. So Pepper says the reason why the Emperor doesn't use them, especially in the Horus heresy, is because the story comes first. If the Emperor just rained down warp magic, the moment Horus appeared, then it would be boring. And this is what I replied. So, then why write him with so many endless powers if he's not using them when it really matters? If the writer sacrificed that aspect, which is a part of the story and the nature of the Emperor, for the sake of the story, isn't that convenient and lazy? And I basically meant that this is like cannibalizing their own story. So, eating out, that's what I mean, eating out one aspect for the sake of another. Relying on emotional relying on emotional drape over our eyes and downgrading the Emperor in the meantime. If they can figure out along with all of the M's powers, that would be, sorry, why didn't I read that right? Yeah. If they can figure it out along with all the M's powers, that would be consistent and not boring. If they count on dialogue between Horus and him, then lay the smackdown on Horus and wipe him out and all of his army as a statement to chaos. It's just an example, not what I'm suggesting, but there's always a way to stay true to the character and to the story quality. So basically my point here is that when you write a character like the Emperor, whoever character, and you wrote him with all of those powers and things, and all of that wisdom supposedly that he has, when it comes down to the very moment that he has to have perceived, that's also like not a thing, that it's almost like he didn't see that. He should totally know by all accounts, all his powers, all of the previous things that we know about the Emperor. He should know that it has come to this moment and he cannot save his son, let alone why does it even have to be coming down to this moment? Why he didn't do something to prevent it? That's another topic that is still relevant to the same principle. When he has so many powers, why is he not using them when it really counts? Why is he not foreseeing what's gonna happen? But okay, let's say he got to that moment with Horus, and he decided to try to reason with him, and that brought him to the death's bed. Basically, that almost killed the Emperor, and well, it did kill him in a lot of ways, taking him out of commission. You know what I mean? So when you're a writer and when you're trying to be consistent and do justice to character and story, you should also find some kind of a way to write the story to be interesting and the character to be true to themselves. Otherwise, there's just so many inconsistencies with the character, and you're like, okay, oh, the Emperor. And this is something that I'm noticing since I got into Warhammer, guys, because each and every one of you are interpreting the character in your own way, and that is also due to not having defining characteristics to him. I mean, they are defined, I think, but then there's the inconsistencies in the story of his actions and how they are a total contradiction to what he is supposed to be. So that's the issue. The Emperor is written very in this contradictive way, and there's so many things that we have to say to justify why he's doing the things that he's doing when they do not make sense according to its character. So when the audience has to justify a character, it has to come up with so many excuses, why he's not working the way that he's written, then I mean that's not our job. That's obviously the job to the writers. So that means that the writers did decide to their convenience to write it for the sake of the story, because they couldn't do both character quality and story quality. They could only pick, uh, the story. And what happened, the fight, everything, yeah, that was pretty emotional, but that's what I'm saying, that they are putting this drape over our eyes, the emotion, so we can totally objectively forget that that actually does not make sense. You have to explain so many things to make it make sense, which they're not really that well explained at all. You're just sucked into the storytelling, but you just have to rewind a bit what you already know about the Emperor to realize that, okay, how did he allow this to happen? Just a normal leader that is wise enough, for real, smart enough, could have perceived that if he doesn't care about the Imperium the way that he should be, with a bit of more personal, so to speak, attention to the sons that he has, so he can teach him how to do things, how to function in the Imperium, how to conquer, how to do everything, basically, to know about chaos, to know how chaos could corrupt them. If you do not protect them, if you do not teach them, how do you expect that they're just gonna perfectly behave themselves like super disciplined children, and they're just going to do everything for you, and they're just going to return to you with the spoils of war, and that's just so awesome and happy, and everything is butterflies, ponies, and rainbows? I mean, of course, that's very naive way to look at things, and he just basically let's say those are his hands, and sand are the primarchs, and everything just got through his fingers and fell apart. And also, but you just have to watch the first part if you want, but also that other point that so far all the books and information that I gone through all points to the fact that the Emperor actually did not do all of that on purpose, and he did actually, he was indeed wrong with all of that. So far, at least, there's a lot more evidence to suggest that he did all all of that really because he is wrong and not because he actually prefers it this way. And it was his plan all along. It was Agatha all along. If you're watching WandaVision. um so yeah, but at the end of the day, guys, they can always just write totally different thing if they want. And I mean, we do know how they recon things, or they're using that something is not that defined. I mean, that well defined, and they can say and twist it the way that they want to, and we can still be like, oh, that happened, okay, but I thought that this is this and this is that, but no, now it's not. So I could be right, I could be wrong, it could be anything. Before the story ends, we don't really know. But so far, the story is at the point where he needs Gilliman, and he needs him really badly to finish what Gilliman started, and basically to bring back the Emperor, find some kind of way to bring him back. And the Emperor needs Gilliman because without Gilliman, the Emperor is screwed. That is how it looks like. He is the only son, the avenging son, the last guy that could freaking help. And that's why the Emperor keeps helping him, bringing him back to life, all of those things, because he is counting on him like a drowning person, uh, trying to catch a tree, something, a tree root to climb from a sinking sand. Okay, sinking sand and a tree root, some kind of a Indiana Jones metaphor, analogy, yeah, something like that. Okay, I went on a very quick rant here, so let's see what you guys are saying while I'm recharging my vocal cords with some water. And Yereo Haichu. The Dragon Emperor sounds like the Emperor of mankind, working on something in secret and letting his children rule. Wow, although 4 are missing. That's interesting. Yeah, from Warhammer, Total Warhammer 3, yes? They do have daddy issues because of all of the things that I listed. Don't care, yeah. If the Emperor had all of his powers, he could have won the Horus Heresy by himself. Well, he should have all of his powers. There's no reason that he did not have those powers. He should have the powers all the time. He was not downgraded before this happened. He was himself. So what does it mean if he had? He did. He didn't use them how he is written to be. That's my point. Well, he infused them with beings from warp, I think. Not exactly. That's why they landed on certain worlds associated with these warp beings. So they were scattered. They were scattered by chaos, basically, infused with different beings. I never heard of that so far. So I don't know when is that? I mean, how did you came up with that, Dimi? Or what is the source? Okay, but even the Egyptians, Norse, and Japanese, and so on had progenitor deities. That is different topic now. That's a different topic. And once again, it depends on the source. Level of deities, you have to know the leveling. Like I said, they have function and some ways of doing things. They cannot just do whatever they freaking want. So even if someone appears to not be as strong, you actually have no idea how strong they are. They're just bound by different rules that they have to obey by, and they cannot just do whatever they like. Not whatever they like. I mean, they're wise enough to know what is right to do in a particular moment, from their perspective. Okay. As well as he had influence on Primarchs characters. That's why Sanguinor and Sanguinius are still present in the warp. What if powers coming with price? It doesn't seem that there's any consequence to his power. I don't know. I mean, one thing is that he's like human, but distant from his humanity. So at one point you're gonna read that he's human, so that's kind of like a flaw, and the other time you read that, oh, he's so distant from humanity, he cannot be troubled with trivial human stuff. So at one point he cares like a human behaves like us, and one point he's like totally disconnected from that. So once again, another contradiction with himself. So if you count that his disconnection is a consequence, but then you have to count in that he is also human. uh, yeah, you have to make it make sense, which once again is not really the audience job, is the writer's job to have some kind of a cohesive line of explanation about anything so it can work together and not be so contradictory. But isn't there therefore that the emperor created the primarchs by shoving them from a gods into them? Mm. Okay, so that thing with the beings, I have some kind of a memory now when I think about it of something like that, but it's just very vague. I have to check that in particular to see what exactly was that about. Okay, so I would say power-wise, the Emperor sounds a bit like a... Ah, yeah, sorry. I read that. And the logger wept and said, told you so. It took a guardsman death to get the Emperors to do something. Oh, yeah, the guardsman died, although Sanguinius was already dead on the floor. Yeah, I mean, if that wasn't enough for him to be like, oh my gosh, I lost. I mean, Horus is lost. I don't know what is. Therefore, only pointed as one point of evidence some angel of light and one of the darkness fighting one another. No idea if they're canon. Major K once mentioned an interesting theory that Sanguinius killed Horus but fell to the Black Rage, so because he loved Sanguinius, he didn't kill him till he was wounded. I don't see any logic in that. I mean, obviously it's a theory, but I really don't see any logic in that because Horus was not there by the rest of the description of his state when he is possessed by a demon, integrated with him, all of that. The demon, the warp, that is what is controlling him basically. Is not Horus. Horus is not there. He decided to give his being, his power, his body, to be controlled by something else. So he was not conscious. Any humanity was not getting through there. He already was giving that completely up. And remember how demons work. If you remember what happened to not to Magnus, sorry. I have not reached Magnus yet. Damn it, to Fulgrim. I made a whole analysis of his book. So he had to he had to, okay, I'm just gonna say give up control so the demon can actually take over him permanently. He had to do this. He had to let go. He had to be like, okay, I give up. Otherwise, he couldn't do that. So everything that happens in terms of control, you have to let it in. You have to allow it. So Horus was lost, absolutely lost. He was not there. The moment that he was there, it was too late because the emperor was destroying him completely, and that initially, when that process started, he appeared because he got separated from the demon force for a bit and realized what was happening. Which I also mentioned that how is that happening? Because he already made so many conscious choices when he was himself before he was one with the demon. He he did so many conscious choices to betray the emperor before that. So now all of a sudden he realizes that that is just so horribly wrong. I mean, it could be, but I don't know if he has even the time to process what was happening. Okay, maybe if he was still conscious somewhere in the back of the mind, watching through the eyes of the demon. I mean, through his own eyes, but basically how the demon uses his body, how the demon lives in his body, and Horus just sitting there watching like a prison in his own mind, just like Fulgrim was. So if that was the case, okay, maybe he had time to process what was happening and how he really betrayed the emperor, how he really became what he feared that the emperor is gonna become, which is this monopoly on everyone. And I mean, not that the emperor was not already dead, but not that Horus should not know what his father wants to do, but he was still like, oh my gosh, my father is such a egomaniac and this is so wrong, I have to stop it. In the future, there's gonna be a statue of my father. Oh, how bad it is, how bad it is. I mean, Horus, do you know who's your dad? I mean, okay. Anyway, totally forgot to watch the video. But okay, let's finish reading what you're saying, and we have, well, we have 15 minutes to go. If I'm keep stopping it, I'm not gonna go anywhere. I have to make a part 3. So let's continue. Let's continue with your comments. Dante and Mephiston. I know more fantasy in 40k. They were linked till the 5th edition, then reconnected, retcon, then at the end of fantasy, Grey Knight, Chapter Master, and Carbander crossed over. Well, that's cool. I love when these things happen. I mean, crossovers. Gulliman fought Kairos, and his trailer dropped today. Trailer drop? What is that trailer? DRL. Make it more clear, please. The Emperor, I mean, makes a bit more sense to me than I can kill the open chaos infused Horus. I don't know what you mean, but now I wonder, did the Emperor have biological children? He did in old lore. The Black Rage came from the death of the angel. What? I mean, if anything, Sanguinius is the most resistant to that. I mean, he at least maybe got better in time, because if you read the Desolation of Baal that I just reviewed a week ago, you can see that the angels are getting very good at resisting the Black Rage, and even Dante is keeping it far back as he can and only letting go just a bit so he can defeat that disgusting tyranny lord or whatever that was at the end of the book. And then he was back to himself. I mean, he never really totally lost control to the point of no return. So he had this willpower, discipline, and awareness of himself still. So if Dante can do that, what that makes, I mean, what is that for Sanguinius? Sanguinius should be a lot better than that, even. But if he did, I mean, he did let go once, but then he should get better at that. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's hard to make sense of your comments sometimes this way, especially when I'm always on another topic already. I'm trying to get what you mean, guys. Well, if the Emperor makes more sense, I don't know what you mean there, because that doesn't mean that he makes sense. It still doesn't mean that he actually makes sense by himself, by the way that he's written. All the contradictions do not go away just by saying that he makes more sense. I can kill the open chaos infused Horus. That doesn't make sense also by its own. But yeah, about the biological children, I think that was pretty like a controversial topic at one point. Maybe he had, yeah, before, when the lore was not that grand, and then they decide, oh no, he's actually cannot have that. I don't know. He should have, though. Total Warhammer trailer Zinch. Oh, Jesus, really? So you mean there's a whole trailer about Zinch? Jesus, let me check. Ah, yeah. Oh, yeah, there is. Oh, yeah, there is. Okay, so I have to cover that. I mean, theory is Sanguinius fell to something like Black Rage, kills Horus, Emperor Rise, and he tries to reason with Sanguinius. Emperor has to kill Sanguinius. How is this making any sense? How is this making any sense? How? I don't get it. It is Horus. It's described that it's Horus. Then you're gonna see the corpse of Horus before he disappears into existence. Sanguinius is dead already. Who is then killed then? Who is the second guy that's killed? I mean, one is Sanguinius, the other one is just still Sanguinius, and just one guy instead of two guys there. I have no idea what is the basis of this theory. What is the basis? I mean, at least in that kind of a way, the book seems pretty clear on that. It's not like, oh my gosh, this is so confusing, I can't get it. It seems clear on that. It doesn't seem like it has some kind of a hidden between the lines anything really. So I just don't see any base for that. Hi Alex. Don't worry. To be God Angron? Corn what is agrees to be God? I don't know what that is. I mean, you have to write a bit more correctly, please, because it's really hard. Hey, geek. Also, today before it was the siege rework. I did the siege, so I do have that. I covered that. In the story, guard, space marine, and sister of battle was killed protecting the emperor, but all three argue who it was. That is, I don't know. I mean, they could from their perspective, but from the perspective of the reader and the perspective of the emperor, it still should be freaking Horus, you know? So which perspective should you take here? The closest one or a bit more farther off? I don't know if some of the sisters or the common soldiers are perfectly, recognizing who is who. If they see them like all in person, I doubt that everyone's seen every Primarch in person. It's not like they have Facebook also, so let's go with the original one because there's a lot more proof to the original story than to this theory, I think. Yeah, it just seems a lot more solid. Okay, trying to continue because I don't want this stream to be too long, but it's already an hour. But still, yeah, let's continue.
Even alpha level psykers, which are again far below the Emperor, can unwittingly destroy entire worlds. Additionally, it's highly likely that the storm of the Emperor's wrath, a vast warp rift that completely engulfs the Clax system, as well as encroaching on several other star systems, was created by the Emperor in a moment of rage at Goj Van Dyer, even as he sat as a corpse on the Golden Throne.
Boy.
However, all of this is peanuts, because the vast majority of the Emperor's power is at any one time devoted to preventing the spread and strength of the Chaos Gods throughout the universe via the warp. Whilst he is not as strong as these gods, he does compete with them, as we saw earlier with the destruction of his son Horus. And so everything that I talked about in my How Big is the Warp video is applicable here, making the Emperor far beyond a multiversal powerhouse or something like that, and into outerversal territories. I recommend checking out that video if you're interested in that sort of thing.
Oh yes. So goodbye Thanos from the Marvel Universe, goodbye Darkseid. He is more powerful than any of them. Like literally, who is more powerful than the Emperor in any fiction? Thinking. Tuk, 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 tuk. I cannot think of anyone. I mean, I know about Darkseid's his real self. I know about Thanos enough. I know about this universe, Marvel Universe gods enough. I still think that he can just wipe them up, like this. So yeah, I cannot think of anyone stronger than the Emperor ever, like ever at all. It's pretty amazing how strong he is. Okay. Finishing your comments, guys, because I now have to really get to that trailer. And it's pretty, I mean, it's not that late, but I have a lot of training to do this evening, so I cannot be here for 2 hours and still having to, definitely check the trailer and cover it. So we're gonna end it here and apparently make a part 3. There's a lot of things to touch upon, so a lot of different topics are created from this, so it's awesome not only to listen to the video but make a totally different, totally my own original commentary on it. We have 13 minutes and 57 seconds to go, and reading your last comments now, so whatever you want to say, say it. Okay, don't care, but I have one question then. Who was on that ship to see and write exactly down what happened? isn't there cameras or something? I always thought the books are more written like the perspective as some people in the Imperium. And it depends. It depends. Sometimes when you read about humans, I mean how they are, it is from their perspective. But when you read about the Primarchs, it is from their perspective. So it's obvious that the books, at least all of those that I went through, when you, yeah, like for instance with Dante now, you know, with that Devastation book, it was totally so up close and personal with him through his perspective. But when you see how his Astartes see him, then it's from their perspective. So you see their perspective, other legions that are angels' perspective, whoever character is on the scene, and like there was one father and one son, humans. You see also their perspective and how they are so miserable, by the way, being humans and how fragile they are. So always, 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 whoever is on screen, so to speak, in focus, it is from their perspective, unless there's some other book that is written from another perspective. But mm, I wouldn't say that that is once again any potent proof at all. It's just your perception of how the book may be written, but most of the times, I mean, all of the times, at least what I've read, is every time the focus is on whoever the particular story the book is on now. So, yeah, there's that. The one above all, Marvel. I still think that the Emperor can wipe that guy. Yeah, a lot. He's cross-universal, as you can see. He is across all universes. It doesn't matter if it's the warp, the materium, universes, astronomicon, spanning throughout a whole known universe that you don't even know the size of. So, and some of the gods in Marvel, they are bound to a universe. Infinity Stones bound to a universe. They are now different in each universe. If you watch What If, I mean, your mind can be turned into a mishmash. But yeah, I don't see anyone as powerful as the Emperor. Okay, Sir D, I think the Emperor just from beings from warp and placed them in experimental process and to engineer bodies of primarchs, all psyker's powers coming from warp, not from this realm. Well, these beings, if that is okay, if that is true about the beings and all that, also not the best way to write it, because who are those guys? Who are they before? What are they? Just people that used to live on Earth, they died or something? They don't remember any of that. They're just some guys that it kind of really diminishes the Primarchs even more if that's the case. Oh ghosts, oh ghost, not ghosts, oh gods of warp, of the warp you mean, are just embodiment of accumulated archetypes becoming sapient. Well, to a point, yes. I mean, by their own nature, how they're written, yes. I assume that after Chaos Gods taught Biggie during this visit in Warp about inner workings of their dimensions, one became more powerful by drawing out of Warp, by assimilating positive archetypes from human psyche and himself. Two, he found need for enslaving and what? Un- Unlisting other needed archetypes and beings. That is just very hard to understand, sorry. So to avoid fall of Primarchs and discovering their residential true warps selves, he needed keep them in ignorance. All Primarchs who had more vile aspect in them fallen when they're discovered warp. I get what you're saying, like overall, but until I see some kind of a substantial description of this exact process, I cannot comment on that. There was a story that the Biggie met Chaos Gods, a little girl with her dog. What? Okay. What? Well, we all know that he spoke to them, but other than that, that sounds like a Little Pony story, something. Well, yeah, you're welcome. Don't care. Okay, so that is it, guys. I really gotta go. I really have to cover the trailer, so I think I'm gonna be ready with that in 30 minutes. I mean, preparing the next stream and live reaction, 30-40 minutes tops, and then do that. And yeah, so I hope that you can join me for the next thing. Yeah, I don't care. I get it. I get it. I just I analyze everything. If it doesn't make sense, if it doesn't have like a solid ground to stand on, I mean, in general, you shouldn't be like on the bandwagon immediately. You have to break it down as far as you can go. See if it can stand any logical explanation of any kind, facts, how something interacts with another thing, and all of that. Because otherwise, it's just like, oh well, I can say that the God Emperor of mankind is a butterfly that we all imagined, and now we are living in our own imagination because the butterfly is just there and we created it and now we don't know what to do with it. And I mean, if there is no story, uh some kind of a clarity that is very very like defined, and some things could be defined, some things could be between the lines. Those are the things that require a bit more advanced perception, but at least the things that are pretty clear, it's very hard to just write them off and just say, well, Sanguinius just farted there in the room and there was actually no no chorus. you know you know what I mean? He just farted and everything changed. Okay. Okay. So thank you, guys. Thank you. Presence in the warp is his original self. Just theory. Well, everyone before they come to their bodies have to also come from somewhere. And I think that is true for Warhammer as well. So, of course, that his soul existed before his physical body was manifested. Let's just go with that. And okay, Dark, that's great. So you can join me when I watch it with everyone for the first time. And yeah, thanks, Matty. The PC is at least one major part ahead of being created. But about the one beings used to create Primarchs, some say evidence for that is no Primarch clone ever fully functioned before the original Primarch's death. No Primarch clone ever fully functioned before the original Primarch's death. Ah, so the clones, because they're clones of the Primarchs, yeah, I remember that. They basically were alive after the Primarchs were dead. That's interesting. That is very interesting. Put a pin on that. That is interesting, yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting now. It makes some kind of a sense if, 40k respects what is a soul in general. But that's another topic once again. There's no body without a soul because otherwise it's just a dead mineral tissue. I mean, tissue made from minerals and other things that by itself is no different than any rock. It's more complex, obviously, but the point is, it's not a life object. Literally, it's an element object without a soul. So the soul, it's what gives it the energy to give it vitality, to not rot, all of that. And then when you die, it rots because that energy is no longer there. Another topic once again. So thank you very much, guys, for watching. See you very soon. And yeah, this was pretty amazing. Analysis, I can say. And a lot of things came out. So next time, part 3, we're gonna see what is left with the awesome powers of the Emperor. If you like, support me, nowhere, OnlyFans, everything is down below. Till next time, we get your reviews, guys. Bye bye.